Hello everyone and welcome to another Venruki video. In this video, I'm basically going to be going over a couple things about Prepatch. Since Prepatch has come out, I've been getting a lot of questions in my stream, and I essentially wanted to go over some of those questions and let you guys know a few things I've discovered since Prepatch has come out. Some changes in the way you gear, some of the enchants you use, some of the essences you use, the talents you use, etc, etc. I'm going to be talking about both Frost and Fire in this video, and maybe Arcane in a different video, but the primary focus for this one is going to be Frost and Fire. All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we do get into the video, I want to announce that this video actually is sponsored today by Forsaken Worlds Gods and Demons. Now, this is a fantasy MMORPG mobile game, and it is quite cool. I had the opportunity to sit down and check out some of the features of the game, and as you'll be able to see, it is really quite beautiful of a game. Lots of different features within the game. The game is available on Google Play in several regions. And I think one of the really cool things about the game is every time you log on, there is an incentive to explore. Speaking of exploring, you're going to be able to use flying mounts to explore the beautiful world. You can check out Kalendor, a magical land. The game does have lots of different character customization options, so I had a lot of fun myself. I always like to kind of make my characters look a little bit goofy, but I know some people take it really serious, and with all those different features, you can make a truly unique character that is unique to yourself. And speaking of just the way your character looks, in terms of gameplay, there's lots of different builds, classes, weapons, specs, and a variety of gameplay. So if you make something, you try it out, you don't necessarily like it, you can try a completely different new class, and that will change your experience entirely. And I think that that's really, really awesome. Gives a lot of replay value to the game. Speaking of obviously PvP, what this video is about, there's lots of PvP within Forsaken Worlds, Gods and Demons. You can get into large-scale battles with up to 10,000 people, believe it or not. So massive battles available to you. If that is your thing, you can check that out. There's dynamic gameplay, lots of different combat effects, lots of classes, like I said, builds, weapons. You can fly anywhere. And there's just lots of different things to do within the game. If you're someone that wants to do dungeons with your friends, you want to just explore caves and slay dragons, you can do that. If you want to just chill in the shade and go fishing, that's another thing you can do. So lots of options. Definitely recommend checking it out. And once again, I just want to give a big shout out to Forsaken Worlds, Gods and Demons for sponsoring today's video. I highly recommend you go pre-register for the game by clicking on the link in the video description and by following the official Facebook page. The Forsaken World is calling you, so go check it out. You can see here, this is quite a beautiful game. And yeah, thanks again for sponsoring today's video. So before we get into that, I wanted to quickly just let you know a few things that I've learned. So with Prepatch, this is going to be kind of like a crash course too, so I'm just going to quickly go through these things. With Prepatch, a lot of people ask me, where do they get their Trinket? As Trinket is no longer a PvP talent, so you actually have to go equip one. So if you want to get a Gladiator's Medallion, what you have to do is go to Orgrimmar, and in the Halls of Honor, the building where all the PvP gear is sold, you go in and you can just purchase one for a small amount of honor. So that's number one. Number two, the way we gear is a little bit different now. So secondary stats, their value got nerfed a little bit, and primary stats such as intellect, agility, they have gone through the roof. So if you have sockets in your gear, I highly recommend you end up picking up this gem, the Leviathan's Eye of Intellect, for a bonus 18 intellect, in addition to the Kraken's Eye of Intellect. So these two gems you want to get into your gear as fast as you can. If you don't have any sockets, don't worry about it, but if you do, it's worth trading out the versatility, worth trading out the haste for the bonus intellect, as it is a damage increase. So keep that in mind. Now, this is for Frost Mage. For Frost Mage, some of the traits have gained some value, some of the traits have lost some value. Ice Lance is particularly strong right now, but for the most part, I've been playing a pretty well-balanced build. So I guess before we get into traits, we can talk a little bit about the specs that I've been playing as a Frost Mage. For Frost, this has been kind of like my standard build. So if you look at the build, you're going to notice it's pretty much the same build you played throughout most of BFA for PvP, using Ice Nova, Shimmer, Incanters, Frozen Touch, Ring of Frost, Comet Storm, and Ray of Frost. Now, these are basically kind of the standard utility talents. There are other builds you can go, but this is the build that I personally enjoy playing, like Rogue Mage 2v2, for example, with, or, you know, playing against any side of melee. It's just a really, really well-rounded build. You have Comet Storm and Ice Nova for your burst. You have your Water Elemental, and then, of course, Ray of Frost to generate some Fingers of Frost. And the damage of it is actually quite nice, and having the kind of on-demand Fingers of Frost is really nice as well. And personally, I really enjoy the utility of the spell, just being able to use it on people that are line of sighting you. This build just has a lot of control. Now, with that in mind, I play Deep Shatter, Concentrated Coolness, and with this build, Netherwind Armor. And I've actually been experimenting with a few different things. So essences, if you didn't know, Crucible of Flame value went through the roof. So definitely put in Crucible of Flame as a minor. It is particularly strong. You can go with Memory of Lucid Dreams if you like. You can go with Breath of the Dying if you like as a minor. You do have some options. Conflict and Strife is still really, really strong as a minor. And I've been experimenting a little bit with the Vision of Perfection, and I actually really, really like it. So Vision of Perfection, well, first of all, I will say there's been some changes with Rune of Power. So Rune of Power now automatically procs when you use Icy Veins, Combustion, or Arcane Power. However, if you're using Vision of Perfection, let's see if I can get it to proc. If you're using Vision of Perfection, when you do randomly proc your Icy Veins via Vision of Perfection, you also get a Rune of Power. So you get a lot of these like really, really bursty moments in the game. And even if you never actively use Rune of Power, which you should sometimes, you're still constantly getting Icy Veins, and you're constantly getting your Rune of Power to drop off that. So it's a significant amount of burst. Another major essence I've been playing is Breath of the Dying. I would say those are probably my two main ones that I've really, really enjoyed, but there's other ones you can play also, and I'll explain it in a build in just a little bit. I want to proc this really, really quickly, so go. But yeah, once you do get the proc, and sometimes it procs like back to back, and it's very, very quick. Sometimes it takes a little while, so it's a little bit of risk versus reward. And I would say in like really, really quick games, it's probably not worth it. So in like Rogue Mage 2s, I wouldn't play Vision of Perfection, but in 3s, this can be kind of like a heavy hitting moment where not only do you get the benefit of Icy Veins, but you also get the power boost of a 30% Rune of Power. So a lot of burst damage ends up being available to you. There we go. Finally, we got the Icy Veins proc for 6 seconds of Icy Veins, and then we also got the Rune of Power to proc. So quite a bit of damage that can happen. It's 40% outside of Arena, 30% inside of Arena. So definitely worth checking that out. But I would say for most of my games right now, I've been playing Reaping Flames and not Rune of Power. I've been playing Incanters. Now, for this particular build, I've still been going with some Tunnel of Ice, so I like a few Tunnel of Ice. I'm playing 2 right now. I'm playing one Flash Freeze. Gives you an extra chance to proc Icicles, also Fingers of Frost. So I actually think there's a lot of value in just kind of running random traits right now. So personally really enjoy Frigid Grasp with how good Intellect is, having one Frigid Grasp, and also when you use Veins, it automatically gives you a Fingers. So you can do things like this, like at the beginning of the game, if you really want to burst, you can drop your Orb, you can use your Fingers, or you can use your Icy Veins, and you automatically have 2 Fingers of Frost, and it just allows you to get really, really aggressive in the game super early on. So that's why I've been using Frigid Grasp, and also the bonus Intellect is really strong. I'm using 1 Whiteout for the cooldown reduction on Frozen Orb, and then Tunnel of Ice, Packed Ice, and I've just been using like a really, really good mix. And personally, that's what I've been enjoying the most for PvP. I feel like the utility of some of these traits is really, really strong, and yeah, it's been really, really good. Now, there's another build that I've played with a little bit, and it's really, really strong. And essentially what this build is, it's a heavy Ice Lance build. So you play Splitting Ice, you can play Thermal Void if you want, or Ray of Frost. It doesn't really matter. I normally play Ray of Frost. Chain Reaction for more damage on your Ice Lances, so you can kind of combo them together. Lonely Winter, and then if you want to, you can play Frostbite as well. And this build is just spam a lot of Ice Lances as a major. I think you can go World Vein Resonance, and when you drop that, it's going to drop a ton of bonus Intellect for you. And then in addition to that, if you want, you can even play Ice Form instead of Frostbite. So if you really want to get crazy, you can use Ice Form. And essentially the way this build works, let me go to Rune of Power really, really quickly, sorry. The way this build works is it's an all-in Ice Lance build. I personally don't enjoy the playstyle of this build as much, but it is really, really strong. Especially in threes, you're able to put out a ton of damage. And essentially the way it works is you kind of just fish for a brain freeze. And in threes, I mean, it is inevitable. You are going to get a brain freeze. Here we go. So I have a brain freeze. So what I do is I use my World Vein. I use my Ice Form, which automatically drops a Rune of Power. I use my Frozen Orb, and then I can Lance again, brain freeze, Lance again, and you can see these lances are hitting for 5,000, 6,000. It is a significant amount of damage. And you could even go an on-use trinket if you want. So comboed with your World Vein Resonance, with your bonus damage you're getting from Frigid Grasp, from activating your Ice Form, with Rune of Power automatically dropping, and with an on-use trinket, you can get 6, 7, 8k Ice Lances. 8k is like the upper echelon, but keep in mind people have 20k HP, so you get off 3 Ice Lances, they're both like, they're dead. So it's a really, really strong build. It's kind of fun, and if you like that kind of Ice Lance playstyle, I highly recommend you check this one out. These have been kind of the two main builds. Now, with that in mind, I feel like you could also run this build kind of similar, but instead of playing Ice Lance focused, you could go back to Comet Storm, you could go back to Frozen Touch, and the way you play this build is you would pick up Tunnel of Ice. So you get 3 Tunnel of Ice. This is kind of an alternative to the Ice Lance build, and I would say it's the Frostbolt build. So you play Tunnel of Ice maximum. You of course want that. Then I would go 1 Flash Freeze, 1 Packed Ice, and 1 Frigid. And that's what I would play. You can use your on-use trinket, and instead of spamming Ice Lances, what you would do is you would just end up building up. You could even, if you want to play Thermal Void, so you would end up just building up your Frostbolts, and you would end up using a lot of your flurries to just combo Frostbolts. So you get a flurry, and then you can World Vein, then you can Ice Form to empower your Frostbolt damage, and you just rifle off Frostbolt. So Frostbolt Flurry, then you can Frostbolt again, and just combo as much as you can. You can see I'm getting 10,000 Frostbolts. It's absolutely insane. So this build is like the glass cannon. Do as much damage as you possibly can. 12,000 Frostbolts. So I would say these 3 builds, you have the kind of standard Frostmage build, you have the Ice Lance focus build, and then you also have the Frostbolt focus build. I think all 3 of them are viable right now. All 3 of them are really fun, and I highly recommend you experiment with all 3 of them. So that's what I would do if I was you. Trinkets, I've been using a PvP trinket and badge, or PvP trinket and Obsidian Claw as kind of my standard thing. Still just going full haste versatility. The int gems, obviously, I mentioned. And one more thing I wanted to mention, if you've gotten this far in the video, is Torrent of Elements. So for weapon enchants, versatile navigation, quick navigation, they've lost a lot of their value because you don't have the plus... you don't have the corruption at multiplying how much you actually get from these spells. So yeah, just going back to Torrent of Element, really, really solid. Like I said, I highly recommend you check out Frost. I have been playing a little bit of Fire, so we can quickly go over that, but I have found that for Fire, I would recommend, honestly, you play the Memory of Lucid Dreams build. I think Combustion is one of the most powerful things for a Firemage right now. So you can go with Memory of Lucid Dreams, you can go with the Hyper Thread Wrist Straps, and then just go Blaster Master Wildfire, basically across the board. Blaster Master Wildfire, Blaster Master Wildfire. You can mix in some Heart of Darkness if you want, if you don't have it, but this would be kind of like the standard. And with this build, you could play Claw. Claw is always going to be good. You could also play a badge for that bonus intellect, and this is where I would say things get kind of out of control with this build. I would also highly recommend, once again, you go with Crucible of Flames. Crucible of Flames, really, really strong. You could even drop Focusing Iris and pick up Breath of the Dying. So you could run something like this if you want. You're not going to be playing Short Combust. So G-Pie, great talent. Flame Cannon, great talent. You can play Pyromaniac if you want. You can play Searing Touch is what I would kind of recommend, and then Rune of Power. And it's the same kind of principle where your Rune of Power is going to drop when you combust, and you're going to be able to do an absurd amount of damage. And this is kind of the Firemage build that I've been playing the most. There has been some changes to Fire where we have Phoenix Flames, stuff like that. So definitely keep that in mind. But yeah, once you build up your Flame Cannon or not, You can basically just go absolutely ridiculous. You can go Memory of Lucid Dreams. You can go Combustion on Use Trinket, and then obviously Meteor, Pyroblast, Fireblast, Pyroblast, Fireblast, Pyroblast, Fireblast, Reset, Pyroblast, Fireblast, Pyroblast, Fireblast, Pyroblast, Fireblast, and then at the end of it all, use your Phoenix Flames to spread that Ignite to many, many targets. And I promise you, anyone that takes that damage is automatically going to die. I mean, if you look at the, unless they use massive defensive cooldowns, that damage is completely unhealable. And you can just see Ignites ticking for 2,000. Each Ignite tick is 10% of someone's health. We're getting Power Blasts that hit for 5,300 just consecutively over and over and over. And you add the Ignite damage, you add the Meteor damage, and it's really difficult for people to live. And then during the game, you can actually play Greater Power Blast still. So you can fish for that Greater Power Blast damage to soak up interrupts. And even though it's a 15-second cooldown, still a great way to initiate some damage. And if you can, build up like a Pyro proc, cast a Greater Power Blast, and kind of combo it. It's still really good consistent damage, and Firemage really does have a lot of utility as a spec with Dragon's Breath and the amount of crowd control it has out. Its consistent damage is good, and I think overall Fire is still really, really strong. So definitely recommend checking out these builds. If you want to as well, an alternative build I would say is you could play the short combustion build. So you would go World Vein Resonance. World Vein. Yeah, you'd go World Vein, and I'll do that once it switches. And then you would also play Vision of Perfection instead of Breath of the Dying. So Vision of Perfection for the short combust. And then you could go Firestarter if you wanted, go Firestarter again. And with this build, you wouldn't really focus on the Hyperthread wrist wraps. I mean, you could if you wanted to, but if you don't have them, this would be the build that I kind of recommend you run. And if you really want to, you could even use like a double on use trinket. If you really wanted to. Not necessary, but if you really wanted to have an on-use trinket for every single one of your goes, this is something that you could do. So you could use the medallion or a different on-use trinket if you do have that available. But I think this is another one of those builds that's really good. And this kind of just focuses on the same kind of idea. So let's go here. World Vein Resonance, and then what would I drop? I think I would drop, honestly, I think I would actually drop Conflict and Strife. So drop Conflict and Strife for Memory of Lucid Dreams, and then it would kind of be the same thing, where if you can get a Pyroblast proc, you're basically, that's when you can do a go. So instead of Memory of Lucid Dreams, you're going to World Vein Resonance, then you're going to Combust, which drops Rune of Power, and then you can Pyroblast, Fireblast, Pyroblast, Fireblast, Pyroblast, Fireblast, Pyroblast, Fireblast, Pyroblast, and then you can Phoenix Flames, Pyroblast, Phoenix Flames, Pyroblast, and you're going to be able to do a lot of damage. And this is a really, really consistent build. And I really recommend you do check this one out as well. It's just Intellect is it's so strong right now. And I think the fact that you can kind of just reset your combustion really, really quickly, I'll show you, by spamming out Fireball. The thing that limits you in this particular build is just going to be your World Vein Resonance, right? So every minute you can basically do an insane go with your Combust, with the Rune of Power, with your Phoenix Flames charges, with your Meteor. And I think for a composition like Rogue Mage, even in twos, this is a build that's going to be really, really powerful. And if you really want to, you could even drop Kleptomania, obviously, and go with Greater Power Blast. So you can use that Greater Power Blast, but kind of the point of this build is to just Fire Blast as much as you can. And I think if you try these Frost builds, you try these Fire builds, and you can see now my combustion is reset. So here we go. I'm going to World Vein, once again, Combustion, Meteor, and I can just Power Blast, Fire Blast, Power Blast, Fire Blast, Power Blast, Fire Blast, Power Blast, and then weave in Phoenix Flames, Power Blast, Fire Blast, Power Blast, Phoenix Flames, Power Blast, and it's a really, really good amount of damage. And don't forget to use Phoenix Flames to spread your Ignite if you want to. But yeah, these are kind of the 5 builds. Remember what I said about Torrent of Elements. Remember what I said about changing out your gems to Intellect. Remember what I said about World Vein Resonance and Crucible of Flame. All these things are really good. Haste Versatility is still going to be kind of a go-to for you. But yeah, this is kind of my crash course for Fire and Frost and just general Mage gameplay. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions for me, obviously you can leave them in the comment section. In addition to that, if you want to, you can come into my stream, obviously, twitch.tv/Venruki. I'm live almost every day, and you can let me know what you think about this. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys got some solid solid info and have a lot of fun with Mage, because so far I've been really enjoying the spec, and I think you will too. So definitely looking forward to more pre-patch games as well as things to come in Shadowlands. Keep it locked on the channel, guys. Follow the stream, follow the YouTube channel, leave a comment, like the video if you like the video, and thank you all very much for watching.